The story you're about to hear has been hiding in plain sight for over 80 years. It involves one of history's greatest minds, government cover-ups, and a truth that challenges everything we think we know about life, death, and what comes after. Before we dive into this fascinating story, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Drop a comment below with your location, and while you're there, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us bring you more incredible stories like this one. In January 1943, Nikola Tesla died alone in room 3327 of the New Yorker Hotel in Manhattan. He was 86 years old, nearly penniless, and many considered him a mad scientist whose best days were long behind him. But within hours of his death, something extraordinary happened that would spark decades of mystery and speculation. Government agents swept into Tesla's hotel room like vultures. They seized everything, every document, every note, every scrap of paper that bore Tesla's handwriting. The official reason was national security. World War II was raging, and Tesla had been working on what he called his death ray, a particle beam weapon that could destroy enemy aircraft from hundreds of miles away. But among the hundreds of documents seized that day was something far more personal and infinitely more mysterious. A letter that Tesla had written but never sent. A letter that would remain classified for decades. A letter that revealed Tesla's deepest thoughts about death, consciousness, and the possibility of life continuing beyond the grave. The letter wasn't discovered until the 1990s, buried deep in declassified FBI files. Even then, it took years for researchers to piece together its significance. What they found challenged every assumption about Tesla's beliefs and opened up questions that science is only now beginning to address. Tesla had always been a man caught between two worlds, the rational world of science and engineering, and the mysterious realm of consciousness and energy that he could sense but struggled to explain. Throughout his life, he made statements that seemed to contradict each other. Sometimes he spoke like a pure materialist, describing humans as nothing more than complex machines. Other times, he hinted at deeper truths about the nature of reality and consciousness. The truth is that Tesla's views on life and death evolved dramatically over his lifetime. In his younger years, he was indeed quite skeptical about spiritual matters. In 1935, at age 78, he famously stated that the soul or spirit was nothing more than the sum of the functionings of the body, and that when the body died, the soul died with it. This was the Tesla that most people knew, the rational scientist who believed in mathematics and physics above all else. But something changed in Tesla's final years. Perhaps it was his increasing isolation, or perhaps it was the profound visions and experiences he had throughout his life that he rarely spoke about publicly. Tesla had always been prone to what he called mental storms, periods of intense creativity accompanied by vivid hallucinations and out-of-body experiences. The letter, written sometime in 1942, reveals a man grappling with questions that had haunted him for decades. In it, Tesla describes a series of experiments he had been conducting in secret, not with electricity or magnetism, but with consciousness itself. He wrote about his attempts to measure what he called life force, an energy that he believed animated all living things. Tesla had become fascinated with ancient Eastern philosophies, particularly after his meetings with Swami Vivekananda in the 1890s. The Swami had introduced him to concepts from Hindu and Buddhist traditions about the nature of consciousness and the possibility of consciousness existing independently of the physical body. These ideas planted seeds that would grow in Tesla's mind for decades. In the letter, Tesla describes what he calls energy patterns that seem to persist even after biological death. He had been experimenting with extremely sensitive electromagnetic detection equipment, trying to measure these patterns. What he claimed to have discovered was startling evidence that consciousness might be a form of energy that could exist independently of the brain. Tesla wrote that consciousness appeared to be electromagnetic in nature, but operating at frequencies far more subtle than anything science had previously detected. He theorized that when the physical body died, this electromagnetic pattern might continue to exist, possibly even transferring to other forms or dimensions of reality. The letter reveals Tesla's growing belief that what we call death might simply be a transformation of energy from one state to another. He drew parallels to his own electrical discoveries, how electricity doesn't disappear when a light bulb burns out, but simply changes form and moves elsewhere in the circuit. But Tesla went further than this. In the letter, he describes experiences that sound remarkably similar to what we now call near-death experiences or out-of-body experiences. He wrote about times when his consciousness seemed to separate from his physical body, allowing him to observe his own body from outside. During these experiences, he claimed to have encountered what he described as organized patterns of consciousness that seemed to exist independently of physical form. These weren't just random visions or hallucinations. Tesla approached these experiences with the same scientific rigor he applied to his electrical experiments. He kept detailed notes, tried to replicate conditions, and searched for measurable phenomena that might explain what he was experiencing. The letter also reveals Tesla's interest in what we might now call reincarnation, though he didn't use that exact term. Instead, he wrote about the possibility of consciousness patterns persisting after death and potentially re-emerging in new physical forms. He theorized that memories, personality traits, and even specific talents might be carried forward by these electromagnetic patterns of consciousness. Tesla wrote about studying the lives of great inventors and scientists throughout history, looking for patterns and similarities that might suggest consciousness recycling through different lifetimes. He was particularly intrigued by cases where young children showed remarkable abilities or knowledge that seemed to come from nowhere, what we might now call child prodigies. The inventor speculated that consciousness might operate like a vast library or database, with individual patterns of awareness drawing from this collective pool of knowledge and experience. This would explain how someone could seem to have memories or abilities from previous lives. They might be accessing patterns of consciousness that had existed before. Tesla's letter also touched on his famous statement that everything is light. He wrote that he had come to believe that consciousness itself might be a form of light, not visible light, but a far more subtle electromagnetic phenomenon that science had not yet learned to detect or measure. This wasn't just philosophical speculation for Tesla. He described specific experiments he had been conducting, trying to photograph or measure these subtle energy patterns. He wrote about building extremely sensitive detection equipment that could pick up electromagnetic emanations from living beings. According to the letter, his preliminary results suggested that each person had a unique electromagnetic signature that persisted even after clinical death. But perhaps the most remarkable claim in Tesla's letter was his assertion that he had made contact with consciousness patterns that appeared to exist independently of physical bodies. He described what sounded like communication with entities or beings that existed in a purely energetic state. These weren't ghosts or spirits in the traditional sense, but organized patterns of consciousness that had transcended physical form. Tesla wrote that these entities had provided him with information and insights that had influenced some of his greatest inventions. He suggested that many of his breakthrough discoveries had come not from his own mind alone, but from tapping into this larger field of consciousness that connected all thinking beings. The letter reveals Tesla's growing conviction that individual consciousness was just one node in a vast network of interconnected awareness. He theorized that death might simply be a transition from individual consciousness to a more collective or universal form of awareness. From this perspective, reincarnation wouldn't be the same soul returning to a new body, but rather consciousness patterns from the collective field manifesting in new individual forms. Tesla also wrote about his observations of what he called consciousness resonance, the way that people with similar thought patterns or interests seem to be drawn together across time and space. He theorized that this might explain why certain discoveries seem to happen simultaneously in different parts of the world, or why some people felt inexplicably connected to historical figures they had never met. The implications of Tesla's theories were staggering. If consciousness really was a form of energy that could persist after death, it would revolutionize our understanding of life, death, and human identity. It would suggest that our individual awareness is part of something much larger and more enduring than we had ever imagined. But Tesla's letter also contained warnings. He wrote about the potential dangers of consciousness research, particularly the possibility that hostile entities or negative patterns of consciousness might be attracted to such experiments. He described experiences where he felt his own consciousness was under attack by what he called parasitic thought, forms, negative patterns of consciousness that seemed to feed off living awareness. Tesla warned that advancing too quickly in consciousness research without proper safeguards could lead to serious psychological or spiritual dangers. He wrote about the importance of maintaining a strong sense of individual identity while exploring these realms, and the need for specific techniques to protect oneself from negative influences. The letter also reveals Tesla's frustration with the limitations of language in describing these experiences. He wrote that the phenomena he was investigating existed beyond the normal categories of thought and language. How do you describe consciousness without a body, or awareness without a brain? Tesla struggled with these questions throughout his research. As Tesla's health declined in his final years, his research into consciousness became increasingly urgent. The letter suggests that he knew his time was running out and that he was racing to document his discoveries before his own consciousness made the transition he had been studying. Tesla wrote about his preparation for death not with fear, but with scientific curiosity. He described specific techniques he had developed to maintain conscious awareness during the dying process, treating his own death as the ultimate experiment in consciousness research. The letter ends with Tesla's instructions for continuing his research after his death. He wrote about specific equipment and procedures that future researchers could use to verify his findings. He also left coded messages that he claimed would allow him to communicate from beyond the grave if his theories about consciousness survival were correct. But the most intriguing part of Tesla's final instructions was his claim that he would attempt to reincarnate with his memories intact. He wrote about specific techniques he had developed to maintain continuity of consciousness through the death and rebirth process. According to the letter, Tesla believed he could return in a new body while retaining access to his previous life's knowledge and experiences. Tesla even provided what he claimed were identifying characteristics that would allow others to recognize him in a future incarnation. He wrote about specific personality traits, unusual abilities, and even physical characteristics that would carry forward into his next life. The letter was found among Tesla's papers but was never sent to its intended recipient, a fellow scientist who had been collaborating with Tesla on consciousness research. After Tesla's death, this colleague was never identified, and many of Tesla's final experiments were lost when government agents seized his papers. For decades, the letter remained buried in classified files. Even after its discovery in the 1990s, many scientists dismissed it as the ravings of a brilliant but aging mind. Tesla's reputation as an eccentric inventor made it easy to ignore his claims about consciousness and reincarnation. But modern science is beginning to catch up with Tesla's theories. Quantum physics has revealed that consciousness might indeed play a fundamental role in shaping reality. Research into near-death experiences has documented cases where people report accurate information about events that occurred while they were clinically dead. Studies of child prodigies and supposed past life memories are finding evidence that's difficult to explain through conventional theories of mind and memory. Some researchers have even begun to investigate Tesla's specific claims about electromagnetic patterns of consciousness. Using modern detection equipment that Tesla could only dream of, they're finding evidence of subtle energy fields around living beings that seem to correlate with states of consciousness and awareness. The search for Tesla's reincarnation has become a serious area of research for some investigators. They're looking for individuals who show Tesla's characteristic genius for invention, his unusual personality traits, and his deep interest in the fundamental nature of reality. Several candidates have been identified, though none have been definitively proven to be Tesla returned. But perhaps the most compelling evidence for Tesla's theories comes from the rapid acceleration of technological progress in recent decades. Many of the technologies that are transforming our world, wireless communication, renewable energy, artificial intelligence, were predicted by Tesla nearly a century ago. It's as if his consciousness has continued to influence human development even after his physical death. Some researchers suggest that Tesla's greatest invention wasn't any single device, but rather the ideas and concepts he planted in the collective human consciousness. From this perspective, every breakthrough in wireless technology, every advance in electrical engineering, every step toward free energy is a continuation of Tesla's work through new minds and new hands. The mystery of Tesla's consciousness research continues to unfold. New documents are still being declassified, new technologies are making it possible to test his theories, and new generations of scientists are approaching these questions with open minds and sophisticated tools. Tesla's letter about reincarnation challenges us to think beyond the limitations of conventional science and consider possibilities that previous generations couldn't even imagine. Whether or not consciousness can survive death and return in new forms, Tesla's research opened doorways of investigation that we're only now beginning to explore. The story of Tesla's secret letter reminds us that the greatest minds in history have always been drawn to the deepest questions about existence, consciousness, and what it means to be human. Tesla's legacy extends far beyond his electrical inventions to touch on the very nature of life itself. As we continue to push the boundaries of scientific knowledge, Tesla's work on consciousness may prove to be his most important contribution to human understanding. His letter about reincarnation wasn't just the speculation of an aging inventor, it was the opening chapter in a new science of consciousness that we're still writing today. The next time you flip a light switch or connect to wireless internet, remember that you're using technologies that emerged from one of the most extraordinary minds in human history. And perhaps, if Tesla was right about consciousness and reincarnation, that same mind is still out there somewhere, continuing to push the boundaries of what's possible and preparing to reveal even greater wonders to the world. What do you think about Tesla's theories on consciousness and reincarnation? Have you ever had experiences that made you question the nature of life and death? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more incredible stories from the hidden corners of history. The truth is often stranger than fiction, and Tesla's life proves that the greatest mysteries are still waiting to be solved.